This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, students.
Good morning, sir.
Today I'm going to tell you on respiratory failure. For respiratory failure may be a difficult topic to understand unless you know the ventilation, perfusions, and all those things, mechanics of ventilation itself, etc. If you do not understand, then it may be difficult. But I'll try to actually make it simple, understandable. Okay. 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 So in this respiratory failure, of course, the various headings are there. So let us go to introduction. So respiratory failure, what is respiratory failure? Just like cardiac failure, respiratory failure means it's a syndrome in which the respiratory system, the lungs fail in, okay. Awesome. The lungs fail both. What are the functions of the lungs? One is actually it oxygenates, oxygenation, and the second one is carbon dioxide elimination. The two important functions of the lungs or respiratory system are is when it cannot do, when the respiratory system cannot function like this, then it is known as respiratory failure. Of course, it may be classified type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. There are actually 4 types of respiratory failure described, but we are more interested in type 1 and type 2 respiratory failures. The type 1 respiratory failure is also known as hypoxemic respiratory failure. Hypoxemic respiratory failure. And the type 2 is actually hypercapnic. Hypercapnic means more carbon dioxide accumulated in the lungs or in the blood. Then hypercapnia, that is known as hypercapnia, or it is also known as ventilatory failure. Ventilatory failure. The third one is actually perioperative failure. Type 3 failure is known as perioperative failure. Actually, more or less akin to type 1 respiratory failure, where the less of oxygen will be present. The hypoxemia is present. That is in case of perioperative failure, where because of various reasons, And the fourth one is actually shock. That is, it may be due to cardiac failure. So when the blood supply is not properly done to the lungs, and then there will be this fourth type of respiratory failure occurs. That is occurs in failures, cardiorespiratory failure. So, but we are more interested in the first two, type 1 and type 2. So type 1 is hypoxemic failure, where the important finding is hypoxemia. The arterial oxygen PaO2, the oxygen tension of the arterial bed is less than 60 millimeters of mercury. That is the main important finding or criterion. That is less PaO2, that is less than 60 millimeters of mercury. But the PaCO2 is more or less normal. That is normal or low arterial oxygen tension. So this is the most common form of respiratory failure, where you find in most of the lung conditions. So Cardiogenic examples are cardiogenic or non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema, pneumonia, pulmonary hemorrhage. So other conditions are like this causes because of the type 1 respiratory failure may be due to that is low ambient oxygen that is present in high altitudes, and when there is ventilation perfusion mismatch, that is parts of the lung receive oxygen but not enough blood to absorb, as pulmonary embolism and alveolar hyperventilation, decrease the minute volume due to reduced respiratory muscle activity. That of course this is mostly present in type 2 respiratory failure, but initially, of course, may actually both, but respiratory failure, of course, is mixed. Sometimes actually both type 1 type 2 actually maybe mixed causes. Like in type 1, then initial stage of COPD, then it is type 1. But later on, the severe acute asthma and COPD later stages, it goes into type 2 respiratory failure because of the carbon dioxide accumulation or whatever it is. And diffusion problem. Oxygen cannot enter the capillaries due to parenchymal disease, like in case of pneumonia, because the alveoli are full of exudate. The alveoli are full of exudate. And ARDS is also full of exudate is present in the alveoli. So there the oxygen cannot enter, they cannot enter into the capillaries. And of course, shunts, in case of right to left shunts, where the blood mixes with the non-oxygenated blood from the venous system. So this is the type 2 respiratory failure. Actually, is defined as a low level of oxygen in the blood. It is typically caused by the ventilation perfusion mismatch. The volume of the air flowing in and out of the lungs is not matched with the flow of blood in the lungs. So both actually will not correlate. Like in case of pulmonary thromboembolism, in case of there actually the ventilatory perfusion mismatch occurs because of the pulmonary embolism there. And one is that is in case of pneumonia, because of the alveoli are filled with fluid also, the ventilation perfusion mismatch will occur. The type 2 respiratory failure is actually the PaO2 is low, but the PaCO2, the alveolar, the arterial carbon dioxide tension will increase to more than 50 millimeters of mercury. Hypoxemia is a common patient with hypercapnic respiratory. Of course, both will coexist in the same patient and the same type of conditions. The pH depends on the level of bicarbonate, which in turn dependent on the duration of hypercapnia. The type 2 respiratory failure is caused by inadequate alveolar ventilation. Both oxygen and carbon dioxide are affected. Defined as the buildup of carbon dioxide that has been generated by the body but cannot be eliminated. The common etiologies are drug overdose, neuromuscular disease, chest wall deformities, severe airway disorders like in asthma, COPD, initial stages, they belong to type 1 respiratory failure. Later on, they come under type 2 respiratory failure. Increased airway resistance, that is COPD, asthma, suffocation, and reduced breathing effort, drug effects, brainstem tension, extreme obesity, a decrease in the area of lung available for the gaseous exchange, like of course chronic bronchitis, both type 1 and type 2. Neuromuscular problems, Guillain-Barré syndrome, motor neuron disease. Deformed chest like kyphoscoliosis, rigid ankylosing spondylitis, and flail chest. So what is more important to understand in type 1, type 2 respiratory failure is one. Because you cannot remember so many conditions. You cannot remember, actually there's so many conditions that sometimes you can mug up, but sometimes you may not remember. But what is more important, if you know the pathophysiology, what actually happens in the lungs during type 1 and type 2 respiratory failure, what are the causes of type 1 and type respiratory failure, then you will understand. You will understand. So simply remembering, of course, is a very difficult task. But if you know the pathology, what happens, then you'll understand. So the type 1 respiratory failure occurs usually the conditions that are present, the conditions are the causes that are present uh, before the pleura. What are the conditions? The conducting system is there, the alveolar, that is respiratory system is there, and the pleura are there. So all those conditions that affect the lungs, right from the chronic bronchitis, bronchial asthma, pneumonia, ARDS, pulmonary edema, pleural effusion, in all those conditions, the affected lung parts are the conducting system, the respiratory system, and the pleura. So there actually the type 1 hypoxemia will occur. Hypoxic respiratory failure occur these. And the type 2 failure usually they are other than outside the pleura. Broadly, you must understand that they are the causes that affect the respiratory system is not only lungs. You must understand one thing. Respiratory system is not just only lungs. Respiratory system is right from the brain, right from the spinal cord, right from the neuromuscular junction. Everything is, they're all the parts of the respiratory, like in the respiratory system in the brain. It is respiratory center. And the spinal cord and the neuromuscular junctions. They're all, and the skeletal muscles and the muscles, that the muscles of respiration, like diaphragm and other that is serratus anterior or intercostal muscles, they're all important. They're all part and parcel of respiratory system. So all those conditions that affect the parts outside the pleura, like from the respiratory muscles, the diaphragm or intercostal, whatever it is, serratus anterior, and the spinal cord, and the neuromuscular junctions, and the brain, they are all parts of respiratory system, and they are the causes. And they are the causes that cause the type 2 respiratory failure. Now we'll understand. The understand is like in case of deformed, that is kyphoscoliosis or ankylosing spondylitis or flail chest. There actually the chest wall deformities actually cannot take part into the ventilation. This is known as ventilatory failure. Ventilatory failure is the cause of hypercapnia. And the second one is neuromuscular problems like Guillain-Barré syndrome. And the muscles of the respiration are affected. Motor neuron disease and muscular dystrophies. They are all involved. And the third is obesity and the drug effects on the brainstem. Like anesthetic drugs or some drugs that the patient takes in excessive dose, like in case of barbiturates. There, the respiratory center depression will occur. Respiratory center depression will occur. In case of extreme obesity, of course, ventilation problem is there. And in suffocation, in all those conditions, actually, other than the lungs are affected. Like in respiratory center is the brain, so spinal cord problem will be there. In the motor, because in some cases this disease like Guillain-Barré syndrome, motor neuron diseases, and then effects, the drug effects that cause actually depression of the respiratory center, and then deformities of the chest like kyphoscoliosis and ankylosing spondylitis and the flail chest. So they all will cause ventilator failure. Ventilator failure, it causes the type 2 respiratory failure where the oxygen tension will become less, the carbon dioxide tension will increase. That is more than 50 millimeters of mercury. So the first one is hypoxemic failure, the type 1. The second one is ventilator failure. Ventilator failure. Of course, etiology, the mortality rate is given here. The clinical presentation. The diagnosis of acute or chronic respiratory failure begins with clinical suspicion. Confirmation is done with ABG. The localized pulmonary findings reflect the acute cause of hypoxemia. That is, I already told, that is pneumonia, pulmonary edema, asthma, or COPD. The neurological manifestations include restlessness, anxiety, confusion, seizures or coma. Asterisk is the tremors. Tremors will observe in case of severe hypercapnia. Severe hypercapnia, of course. That's of course what you see in cirrhosis of liver and hepatic encephalopathy. The same type of tremor. The same type of tremors you will also find in hypercapnia. Of course, tachycardia. So cyanosis also another important feature. Of course, dyspnea you all know, important finding. The pulmonary hypertension is frequently present in chronic respiratory failure. Because of the problems in the lungs and the arterioles there, actually, the pulmonary hypertension will occur. Alveolar hypoxemia potentiated by hypercapnia causes arterial hypertension. Criteria diagnosis of this ARDS. Chest radiography is essential. Pulmonary function tests may be helpful, although more useful in terms of defining recovery potential. The ECG should be performed because in case of type 4 respiratory failure where the cardiac failure is the important cause of type 4 respiratory failure to evaluate possibility of cardiovascular cause of respiratory failure. It also may detect dysarrhythmias resulting from severe hypoxemia or acidosis. ABG analysis should be performed to confirm the diagnosis. CBC may indicate anemia, can contribute tissue hypoxia, whereas polycythemia may indicate chronic hypoxemic respiratory. Abnormalities to the renal hepatic function, important cause of respiratory failure. Abnormalities such as electrolytes are important, aggravate the respiratory failure like potassium, magnesium, phosphate. Serum CKB, that is CKMB fraction like troponins exclude recent MI patient respiratory failure. The chronic hypercapnic respiratory failure, serum levels of TSA should be measured in evaluator. About these are all investigations. Investigations are like what you have to do is ABG analysis, CVP, and then renal function to RFT and LFT, and then serum electrolytes, and then CKMB, and then TSH. They're all important tests that we should do. Chest X-ray, bilateral airspace infiltrates, both. This is lung pneumonia. No, it's not pleural effusion. These things, this dark is actually bronchi, that is air bronchograms. Forty-four when acute respiratory failure, diffuse bilateral infiltrates, acute ARDS. turned out to initial presentation SLE, of course SLE. Initial presentation SLE. Bilateral infiltrates, no lipids. The correction of hypoxemia. The mechanical ventilation should be used. The ventilation approach is specific is non-invasive ventilation support, weaning from ventilator. The first objective with the management of respiratory failure is to reverse or prevent tissue hypoxia. Many experts believe that hypercapnia should be tolerated until the arterial blood pH falls to less than 7.2. The patient with acute respiratory failure generally should be admitted to ICU. Most patients with chronic respiratory failure can be treated at home. This is, of course, ECMO machine. When the airway is secured, attention is turned toward correcting the underlying hypoxemia. Adequate oxygen level should be there. That is, should be more than 60 millimeters of mercury. SaO2 should be maintained more than 90. Of course, oxygen, how is oxygen delivered? Administered via nasal prongs or face masks. In patients with severe hypoxemia, intubation and mechanical ventilation are often required. Mechanical ventilation is used for essentially to increase PaO2 and to lower the PaCO2. And it also respirates the respiratory muscles because respiratory muscles fatigue may be there. Respiratory muscles fatigue will be there, like in case of type 2 respiratory failure. Type 2 respiratory failure, like in case of MND, in case of Guillain-Barré syndrome, and other causes of nervous CNS, say the respiratory muscles will go into fatigue. So mechanical ventilation tests the respiratory muscles, and appropriate therapy for respiratory muscle fatigue. After the initiation of mechanical ventilation, the ventilator setting should be adjusted on the basis of lung mechanics. A different topic. Then we'll try to take later on. Underlying disease process, gas exchange, and response to mechanical ventilation. Of course, SMV is actually assist control ventilation, means the patient actually synchronize ventilation, mechanical ventilation. With the patient with intact respiratory drive, intact respiratory drive is there. The patient is able to take some respirations. The patient is able to take some respiration. You have to support it. You have to support it. But when there is mild to moderate respiratory failure, good choice. The lowest FiO2 that produces SiO2 generally is recommended. Prolonged use of FiO2 less than 0.6 is unlikely to cause risk. Ventilative support. Ventilative support via nasal mask, face mask rather than an endotracheal tube is increasingly being employed for patients with acute or chronic respiratory. You all know what is NIV. NIV, non-invasive ventilation. Non-invasive ventilation, you all know very well. That is CPAP or BiPAP. Should be considered in patients with mild to moderate acute respiratory failure. The patient should have an intact airway and airway protective reflexes and be alert enough to follow commands. What are the medications? They include loop diuretics such as furosemide, which inhibits sodium chloride and deabsorption in the ascending loop annually. The administered loop diuretics such as furosemide intravenously, which this allows both superior potency and higher peak concentration in spite of increased incidence of adverse effects. Nitrates reduce the myocardial oxygen demand to decrease the preload and afterload. Of course, sublingual nitroglycerin tablets are given there and then morphine is an excellent adjunct in case of management of acute pulmonary edema. In addition to anxiolysis, the most important effect of morphine is venodilatation. Venodilatation reduces the preload. It also causes the arterial dilatation, which reduces systemic vascular resistance and may increase cardiac output. Dopamine. Inotropic agents are dopamine, dobutamine, imrinone. Of course, spelling mistake is imrinone. Amrinone. A-M-R-I-N-Y. A-M-R-I-N. Amrinone. Of course, it previously it was known as amrinone. It is inamrinone. Milrinone. Milrinone. Dopexamine and digoxin. In patients with hypotension who present with CHF, dopamine and dobutamine usually are applied. Bronchodilators are important. You all know very well about doxycycline and deriphyllin, along with the adrenergics, like with the beta adrenergics like salbutamol, terbinafine, like that. They are all bronchodilators. Methyl giants like deriphyllin, aminophylline, of course, anticholinergic, ipratropium bromide, tiotropium bromide. So these agents, they will decrease the muscle tone in both small and large airways in the lungs. Theophylline, of course, you know very well. And of course, the other effects are like it increases the respiratory muscle function and mucociliary clearance. And see, respiratory tract. Theophylline is a very important drug. It's very important drug. So mucociliary clearance is also there, and central respiratory tract. Central respiratory tract is also accomplished. It partially acts by inhibiting phosphodiesterase, elevating cellular CMP, antagonizing adenosine receptors in the bronchi, resulting in relaxation of smooth muscles. Good drug, corticosteroids have been shown to affect and accelerate recovery from COPD exacerbations. Summary of the guidelines. NIV may be considered, non-invasive ventilation may be considered in COPD patients with acute exacerbation of the following three clinical settings: to prevent respiratory stenosis and to prevent endotracheal intubation or invasive mechanical ventilation in patients with mild to moderate acidosis or expiratory distress. It is an alternative to invasive ventilation in patients with severe acidosis and more severe respiratory distress. Bilevel NIV may also be used, providing ventilator support. CPAP, a bilevel NIV is suggested for patients with ARF, acute respiratory failure due to cardiogenic pulmonary edema in the pre-hospital setting. LE NIV is suggested for immunocompromised patients with ARF. NIV is also used in case of post-operative ARF. Can be offered to dyspneic patients for palliation in the setting of terminal cancer. For prevention of post-extubation respiratory failure in high-risk patients, not suggested to prevent post-extubation respiratory failure in this patient. To facilitate weaning from mechanical ventilation in patients with hypercapnic respiratory failure. So that's thank you. But of course, this is a difficult topic to understand, this respiratory failure. And actually, I'll try to take actually when the classes start again. The classes start again, probably later on November or December. Then there I'll try to take again the respiratory failure. Then unless you understand the two important things, that is hypoxic failure and ventilator failure, you must understand. You must understand respiratory system is not just only lungs. There's so many outside things like muscles and respiratory centers. They're all important. They're all important in the functioning of the lungs. So, of course, it's a difficult topic. Read well, and we'll try to take again. The time permits. So, thank you, one and all, for your patience here. Thank you. ఎంత టైం పట్టింది? హాఫ్ అన్ అవర్ చెప్పా. ఓకే, అటెండెన్స్ తీసుకు ఎంత ఉంది నాకు? ఓకే, థ్యాంక్ యూ.